Good Tuesday
afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan
Lucero
here with you for the next 3 hours as we break down what has been a truly, frankly, incredible day for the NFL trade deadline. Some massive moves all around the NFL today that are going to impact the postseason run for at least a handful of teams. A few teams who maybe we all thought would make moves did not end up making any. We'll break down all of them coming up here in just a moment to lead off this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. We'll also get some NFL contender pretender in the 4 o'clock hour. As now we've got a few changes to a few teams. We'll see who are some teams on the fringes of either Super Bowl or playoff contention, and whether or not we think they are actually in the hunt for either or any of those things. That's all coming up across the show today. Plenty of college football to get to as well. Did you know the college football playoff rankings come out tonight, the first ones of the year?
I was wondering when we'd get to this day.
Week 10, I believe I determined earlier this year is when they usually come out, and I forgot. And this morning I saw they were coming out. Oh, I guess it's week 10 of the season now. So we will get the rankings up tonight. We'll tell you who we think the top 6 will be. And also, it might not be the same who we believe should be in the top 6. Will and should be. As we've known with the college football playoff for many years, two very different things. Plus, one of the Big 12 odds is getting in. Specifically, K-State get in with 2 wins. They run the table the rest of the way and beat TCU over 2 losses. Does TCU go undefeated and get in? We'll talk about that coming up at the bottom of this hour. And Michael Swain of Blog.net is going to stop by at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for Jayhawk Weekly, brought to you by 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. A lot to get to on the KU front. Jalen Daniels, you going to play on Saturday? Sounds like things might be trending in that direction. We'll talk about that coming up later on in the show. Today, we'll get to our 5 minute Sports Talk headlines. We've got our first What Is Wrong With You of the month of November. And we've got Random Question Tuesday coming up a little bit later on this hour as well. Plus, got some K-State basketball tonight. Taking on Washburn. You'll be able to hear Jake call that over on Country 106.9. And our Dan Lucero will be in the house at Bramlett Coliseum to cover the game. You excited to see the brand new Wildcats tonight?
The brand new Wildcats, a very new look Washburn Ichabod team as well for head coach Brett Ballard after the graduation of some seniors who were, frankly, in some of the all-time greats in the program when you talk about Tyler Guyman. So, excited to see both teams, but for sure, very interested to see what Jerome Tang basketball looks like.
We're going to find out at least a little sample of that coming up tonight. All that coming up your way here on the program. If you would like to be involved in the show, you can do so as always on the Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. And we're not going anywhere. I told you this was going to be every day. It is every day. Head over to our YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. We are live. Second day in a row of live streaming. This is a regular thing now, guys. You don't just listen to the radio. You can go to the website, of course, 580WIBW.com now. Listen on the web player, and you can go to YouTube. See Dan and myself. Dan dressed very nice today. I am rocking the shout out to home field apparel. You wear the fog shirt. Vermont is the subject of the hat today. My beloved Catamounts of Vermont.
So, how did you come to acquire a Vermont Catamounts snapback?
It is very simple. I enjoy Vermont basketball, and a couple years ago, Lids was having a sale.
Okay.
So, I was 25% off everything. I think I bought like 4 hats.
When you say you enjoy Vermont basketball, does that mean you enjoy the general idea of the Vermont Catamounts, or you make a point on ESPN Plus to sit and watch the action out of would that be in the America East Conference?
It is the America East.
Thank you.
And yes, they are. I will occasionally open up the Plus for Big 12 games, obviously. There's a couple teams or a couple, situations I might actually tune in for. I actually watch Vermont basketball. My best friend and I, he's a huge college basketball guy. So we kind of adopted them as our team a long time ago, thinking Taylor Coppenrath days. And just always kind of stuck with them. So we're rocking with the Catamounts today.
I also am familiar with the work of Taylor Coppenrath. Please do not ask me to name a second Vermont Catamount.
I've also got to point out or ask the trivia question. Do you know who the other Catamounts is in Division One?
Oh, it's a Western Carolina.
It is Western Carolina.
Let's go.
Well done. That was
Thank
one
you.
guess.
One guess. That's one shot.
One comment I would like to make. You can also interact with us on the YouTube as well in the YouTube comments. We just had our guy Moko in the comments mention there was something wrong with my mic. And I realized, you are all getting feedback from my microphone. But I fixed it in studio. We got a whole thing going on here. We're all set to go. So thank you for that. That is the beauty of the YouTube stream. You can interact with us directly just like you can on the Big O Tires text line.
Yes, and sometimes it is very urgent that we find out, hey, you guys sound messed up, like more so than you usually do. And that helps us get it fixed.
We appreciate that. Plenty to get to. Join in on the YouTube comments. Join in on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. Let's get to the NFL trade deadline. What a day around the NFL. Let's run you through some of these big trades. The first one of the day, the Minnesota Vikings got TJ Hawkinson from the Detroit Lions. Those two teams are in the same division, by the way.
Yeah, that was the tip-off that we were in for a trade deadline day, unlike any other, certainly that I can recall, and maybe any other in the history of the NFL, that out of the blue, two divisional rivals would casually make a swap like this.
I had a Lions fan in my mentions on Twitter telling me that, no, this was not actually a dumb trade. The Lions defense is terrible and they need more picks for the future. And they have what was the phrasing he used? Something about essentially having a glut of weapons offensively. Like essentially they had tons of weapons to use.
They have two very good running backs.
Mm-hmm.
They have Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Very good. He told me that they're still waiting on Jameson Williams, who, by the way, is a rookie wide receiver who's never played an NFL snap and relies on his speed and is coming off of a torn ACL. And also DJ Chark, who has been injured all year and hasn't even been a serviceable NFL player since 2020. But sorry, TJ Hawkinson doesn't like to block. So you got to move him. If that's your argument, if your argument is, well, he doesn't block and we have two injured guys who never play, and that's your reason for getting rid of them, you have Stockholm syndrome for your crappy team. That is a warning to you. Your crappy team has given you Stockholm syndrome. So that was the first trade of the day. That was a big one. Look, I don't like complimenting the Vikings. Good for the Vikings because they are going for it.
Yeah, they've lost Irv Smith for an indefinite amount of time. They placed him on injured reserve today, so they needed a weapon at tight end, and they got as good a one as they could have gotten on short notice. Probably better than any they could have reasonably been expected to acquire in Hawkinson. He will help their offense.
Other trades from today, also from the NFC North, the Chicago Bears, they get Chase Claypool from the Steelers for a second-round pick. Now, this was not initially reported correctly because the Bears got a second-round pick from Baltimore for this year's draft in the Roquan Smith trade yesterday. It was originally reported that was the pick that was going to Pittsburgh. So, okay, that's still a pretty high pick, top 60 pick, but you're looking somewhere in the mid to high 50s. It was actually the pick that the Bears own themselves. So it was probably going to be a pick in the mid to high 30s. I get why the Bears did this. They have a ton of draft picks. They have a ton of cap space, so they can extend him. They still have him for the rest of this year and next season as well. They need a receiver. Chase Claypool, though, is also more famous than good.
That is exactly what I was just about to say. That is the question that I frequently ask when it comes to, when a player gets traded and you think, well, wait a second. He's pretty good, isn't he? And then you think, well, is he actually good or do we just know his name? Do we just know Chase Claypool's name because he was really good at a program that gets a lot of TV time in college?
Your kids on TikTok know Chase Claypool. They don't know if he's any good, but they know who he is.
You know what he is? He's big.
He's very big. 6'4". He's fast. His relative athletic score coming out of college was off the charts.
He's never put up monster numbers. He has been handicapped by the deteriorating quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, to be fair. But yeah, I don't feel like this is the earth-shattering wide receiver acquisition that is going to change the perception of Chicago's passing attack. Like, I don't think he's better than Darnell Mooney, so I don't think they got their best wide receiver in this trade.
Agreed.
And I don't think they got a bona fide number one or number two wide receiver in this trade.
I would agree with that. It's better than what they had. It is better
Sure. Velus Jones?
Equanimous St. Brown.
Byron Pringle. I know we love him around here. You won't catch me saying anything bad about Byron Pringle. Is he better than Byron Pringle? Like, he's bigger than Byron Pringle.
Yeah, he's got that. The Steelers also made another move. I don't really get what they're doing. They also acquired defensive back William Jackson from the Commanders for a couple of late picks.
They don't have any defensive backs.
Yeah, I guess that's it. They just need bodies.
Yes, that might literally be, we went to the pantry and we didn't have anything here.
Which, I mean, I get it, but also at some point, it'll just tank. Like,
it's like when your
season's already over.
Madden won't let you sim to the next week unless you have X amount of cornerbacks on your roster. You have to fill the quota.
Other moves. This is when it got real big. The Hawkinson move, big deal in the NFC. Here's the move that was truly, I think, the game changer of the day. Because we talked about this name a lot. We spent a lot of time on Wednesday last week, 6 days ago, talking about Bradley Chubb. The Denver Broncos have traded Bradley Chubb to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for 2 draft picks and running back Chase Edmonds. Edmonds has not been good this year. We'll get to the easy stuff real quick.
Yeah, he's averaging less than 3 yards a carry. It's not really a needle mover for the Broncos, who will probably continue to give a bunch of carries to Latavius Murray.
I would assume Latavius Murray is like a low-key, very nice player. Like, he's always kind of been a forgotten guy. He's kind of a nice player. Anyway, beside the point, the big news is the Dolphins give up a first-round pick that they got from the 49ers in the Trey Lance trade. They get Bradley Chubb. I think, and you might view this differently because you do have an intimate familiarity with the Broncos more so than I think most Chiefs fans or people in this area. I get this trade from both sides. I really do. Because if you're Denver, if you already weren't planning to bring him back, and if he's that deep in trade talks, you're probably not planning to bring him back, dumb or not. That's just not going to happen. You get a first-round pick back, which you weren't going to have because of the Russell Wilson trade. You get another mid-round pick back for a depth guy. Okay, that's valuable. You're trying to recoup some picks. Your defense you're banking on is probably still good enough to keep games competitive even without Chubb, even though he's had a good start to the season.
5.5 sacks.
I understand it. It's probably hard to stomach if you're a Bronco fan, but I can understand the logic behind it, even if maybe it's not perfect. From the Dolphins' perspective, though, look, you've already proven you can at least hang with the big dogs because they beat Buffalo this season. That's not an easy thing to do. They believe they can go for it with the offense they have right now. With Tyreek Hill on pace to have the best wide receiver season in terms of yards ever. Jalen Waddle looks great. They're getting that offense going. Tua looks really good. Let's add to the defense, which is somewhat bleak and very injured. Let's go for it. I can appreciate that. Also, real quick, before we get more context here, the Dolphins got 3 first-round picks from the 49ers in the Trey Lance trade. Those 3 picks, they've all been traded. They turned into Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb. That's pretty good GMing in my book.
That's one red paper clipping your way to a playoff team right there. That's awfully impressive GM work by the Brain Trust there in Miami. The thing about trading Bradley Chubb, and I brought this up when we talked about it last week, if the Broncos were willing to trade Von Miller last year, that tells you all you need to know about George Payton's lack of sentimentality, lack of attachment to players as a general manager, willingness to make a move like this when it is clear that, like, Denver's 3-5. Could they make the playoffs? Like, in theoretically, it's not a 0% chance, but nobody takes them seriously as an AFC contender, nor should anybody take them seriously as a team that can make some noise. They were in a similar spot last year after a better start. Remember, they started 3-0 last year, but they were starting to skid, and they were, I think they were 4-3 this time last year, or 4-4, and then they traded Von Miller, like franchise legend, future Hall of Famer Von Miller,
who, by the way, is still awesome.
Yes. So, of course, they're going to trade Bradley Chubb. When you look at it through that perspective, yeah, they were probably going to do the same thing. And yes, they needed to recoup draft capital because it's very clear that even the addition of the quarterback that they thought was the missing piece, they are still some ways away from being legitimate contenders in the AFC, and acquiring talent like that without any first-round picks for the next 2 years was going to be difficult. So they're able to recoup a first-round pick. That's a good bit of business for the Broncos. I don't fault them for doing that.
They also acquired another edge rusher, Jacob Martin, from the Jets.
That's where it gets weird. Like, they traded a 4th rounder for Jacob Martin. And Jacob Martin's kicked around the league. He started in Seattle, 6th-round pick. He was part of the Jadeveon Clowney trade, I think. Ended up in Houston for a couple of years, and then he was with the Jets this year. He is a rotational guy. 25 to 35% of the snaps. He'll get you 2-3 sacks this season. For the Broncos to go and make a point to get a guy like that, to give away draft capital to get a guy like that, that feels like you're trying to signal to your fans and to your locker room, hey, we may have traded our best pass rusher, but don't worry. We're going to find somebody who can contribute 25% of his production.
We've got a fraction of that player and also Randy Gregory, notoriously very accessible and very available.
We are acquiring this player. And, oh, hey, little something else special for the fans. He's a local kid. He is. He's from my neck of the woods, Aurora, Colorado. Like, it feels like
classic.
It feels like a thing the Denver baseball professional franchise would do. And I don't mean that as a compliment. I really think that's a weird piece of business for the Broncos to turn around. Like, okay, you traded Chubb. Great. I get it. If you weren't going to sign him to a long-term extension, you got to pay Draymond Jones, who I don't think he's as good as Bradley Chubb, but he might be more valuable because he's an interior pass rusher. And he's a really good player. Like, I'm not knocking Draymond Jones. That's a good player. They got to pay him, and they're going to have to pay Patrick Surtain II eventually. And then, of course, in a couple of years, that Russell Wilson extension kicks in, and that's going to be expensive too. So they're looking at that and saying, hey, Bradley Chubb may be a luxury we just can't afford. And we can get a first-round pick for him right now and wallpaper over at least a small portion of this mistake we appeared to have made with this Russell Wilson trade. That makes sense. To then turn around and trade a mid-round pick, and I know a 4th-round pick isn't anything super special.
But those are the picks you build your roster with.
Yes, you build your roster. You fill out your roster with those guys. Trade a 4th-round pick for Jacob Martin, who was a 6th-round pick himself. Like, I don't see it. I don't see why you do that.
We have breaking news. We're going to jump in here. The Kansas City Chiefs made a trade at the buzzer of the trade deadline. Cornerback Rashad Fenton has been traded to the Atlanta Falcons.
Wow.
The return not yet known. That is odd.
Well, what that is, gut reaction, that is a display of a great deal of faith in Jalen Watson and Josh Williams.
Yep.
And I am not sure that I disagree with that all that strenuously. In fact, I think I might be inclined to agree with the sentiment that Watson and Williams have shown enough in their cameos this year, and that Fenton, frankly, has struggled enough in the way that he played out of the gate this year to say, let's go with all rookies and L'Jarius Sneed as our defensive backcourt moving forward.
Honestly, I understand it. I get that move. I like Fenton. I wish him the best. He put together 3 very solid seasons for the Chiefs. He really did. This season has been a step back. I am curious what they can get back for him. I mean, if you trust Williams and Watson, which I think the Chiefs are right to do, can you get at least a 6th back? That's what you drafted him with in 2019. You drafted him with a 6th-round pick. I mean, if you can get that back, that's a huge win, right? Just in terms of long-term thinking, that you've got the replacements for him. You got 3.5-ish good or at least solid seasons out of the guy, and you get back the same level of pick you gave up for him.
Yeah, anything more than a late-round pick, I think, would be alchemy on the part of Brett Veach. I wouldn't expect much more. Like a 5th would be the most I would expect.
How about a 7th?
That sounds about right.
According to our friend Matt Verderam from Fansided.com, the Chiefs received a 7th-round pick for Rashad Fenton. KC gets $1.4 million in cap space by moving him. And so you get flexibility. Okay, well, this is interesting. It's a conditional 7th. So that either means it's nothing or it probably could be a 6th. Probably has to play a certain amount. We'll have to find out what the conditions on that are. Interesting.
That is an interesting move. But again, I think that you're placing faith in guys who showed that they might be worthy of that faith. I think that Williams and Watson have played really well in Fenton's absence the last couple of weeks in particular. I mean, you think about it. The Chiefs were without Fenton the last 2 weeks, up against the Bills and up against the 49ers. Bills, obviously, outstanding offense, great receivers, and Jalen Watson got put on that Summer Jam screen on that late first half touchdown by Gabe Davis in the Buffalo game. But the 49ers, they've got good downfield targets, like good wide receivers, maybe not an elite quarterback to throw to them, but they've got good talent, great talent at wide receiver between Samuel and Ayuk. And those guys held their own. And in Josh Williams' case, he had a pick at the goal line. Jalen Watson's already got a pick 6 this year. Like, those guys, when the time has come, we saw them look good in the preseason. We heard good things about them coming out of training camp. This isn't out of nowhere. This isn't, oh man, our hand is forced. We've got to turn over these guys and cross our fingers. The Chiefs have been evaluating these guys since they got them in the draft and have liked their progress enough to trust them in 2 really big games. Like, remember, they could have rushed Trent McDuffie back. They probably could have tried to rush Rashad Fenton back in their most recent game. It chose not to do those things. They went with the young guys. That's how much they trust those guys. And to me, that's just an extended sign of their trust. Even though it's always shocking to trade a guy that started the year as your cornerback number 1, I think it makes a certain amount of sense for the Chiefs. And $1.4 million in cap space, maybe that's useful at some point.
The only thing, and I agree with everything you said, the only thing I would add that could be a downturn, and it might be something that you just understand you have to work through, that is an extremely young group. And young groups are sometimes prone to just mistakes or are prone to, being a valley. It might be a couple of games before someone can work through something. So that is a lot of faith in a group where the oldest player is now in his 3rd year in the NFL. I mean, that's a risk you are taking, but if you truly believe in these guys, and Matt Verderame is now saying, I'm told this is because they love the young corners. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network straight up said this is nothing but a cap-clearing move for Kansas City, which is kind of crazy given how effective Fenton has been, at least at times, over the last 3.5 seasons. I get it. I understand it. I am a little surprised. It also should be said, the Falcons need defensive back help. Like, they have nobody. They've had multiple injuries, including to their best cornerback, A.J. Terrell. They just need bodies who are professionals at this point, so I get it from them. Conditional 7th, I mean, why not? Why not take a stab at it? So that is very interesting for the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is seems to be at least the final trade that got in for NFL trade deadline day.
The only one we haven't touched on in this segment was one that happened right before we went off the air. As Jake LeBon of Mic'd Up was handing the studio off to us, the Buffalo Bills acquired Nyheim Hines from the Indianapolis Colts.
It's a good move for the Bills.
I like it, but they traded Zach Moss, so they gave up a running back to get a running back, and that's an upgrade. Hines is an upgrade over Moss.
Yeah, Moss had fallen out of their rotation.
But when I watch the Bills play, they don't seem to me as a team. I don't watch them and feel like, oh man, they get more from their running backs, and they're really going to be scary. That's not how I feel about them. Like, Hines is a nice piece, and he can help them, but to me, the Bills are about what they do in the passing game. The Bills are about what Josh Allen does. And so I don't see them committing to the run or committing to using the running backs in such a way that Nyheim Hines is a paradigm shifter for that offense.
I would agree with that. I would assume that's just as your pass catching back and probably your pass protecting back as well. They use Devin Singletary actually a lot in the passing game against Green Bay, which is easy because they play so soft, but you had to get that in there. But I think you'd probably rather not have to use him a ton in the passing game. That's not really Singletary's strength. Whereas Hines is a very good pass catching back. So you're right. I mean, it's a complementary piece. It is not a game changer, so to speak. A lot of these other moves, game changers. By the way, we've already gone long in this segment. We'll get to a break really quickly. Can I bring up one trade that really didn't make much sense to me? The 49ers traded running back Jeff Wilson to the Dolphins. So the Dolphins now, they get a legit starting pass rusher who they really needed in Bradley Chubb. They get rid of Chase Edmonds, who had been an albatross this year, and they add Jeff Wilson, who's at least been solid, to now be in their stable of running backs.
Yeah, I think where have we seen him and Raheem Mostert be a effective duo before?
I mean, that's a pretty darn good backfield for San Francisco. Makes sense. McDaniel, want to get his guy back. Do you know who the backup running back for San Francisco is?
Oh, he's got 3 names. It's a hyphen, isn't it?
Tyrion Davis-Price.
Yep.
From LSU, who has 16 carries this season and 37 yards.
And that's their Christian McCaffrey insurance policy right now.
You must love that dude, because that is insurance policy in a system where the players get hurt all the time and the specific starter gets hurt all the time. I don't get that one for San Francisco. I'm really not sure about that move. Otherwise, though, a lot of these make sense, except for the Lions. That trade was dumb. That was very, very stupid. What a very dumb move by Detroit. We'll get two more on the trade deadline and some more from around the NFL coming up a little bit later on in the show. Right now, we do need to take a quick break. We'll play Random Question Tuesday next on 580 Sports Talk. Time for Random Question Tuesday here on 580 Sports Talk, a busy NFL trade deadline Tuesday on the first day of November. My random question for today actually springs from a conversation we had in the office last week, 2 weeks ago maybe. When you think of a perfect song, what's the first one that comes to mind?
A perfect song?
You hear it and say, this song is perfect. No notes. Perfect.
First one that comes to my mind.
Yes.
Man, there's so many different ways you can answer that question because there's perfect rock songs, there's perfect pop songs, there's perfect country songs.
We'll take your thoughts as well on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. When you think of a perfect song, what is that song?
My first thought was No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age.
There's a great one.
It's just, to me, is a perfect song. Man, like that's a great question. Like Baby One More Time by Britney Spears is a perfect song.
That is the perfect pop song.
That
really
is. That is a perfect pop song.
I saw someone yesterday, this was just online, I think it was on Twitter. It might have been elsewhere. But I saw someone say it was in a debate about guess who, Kanye West. And they said that Britney Spears never had the cachet that Kanye West has. And I thought, sir, were you born after the year 1999? Because I guarantee you that is not true. There was a period in time where she probably had more power over people in the world than the Pope did. Like, she was everything.
Somebody who doesn't remember her Rolling Stone cover.
No.
A formative moment in the youth of yours truly.
I was pretty young, but then I got the internet, and I can agree. 2 entries from the Big O Tires text line, 99 red balloons. Here's the caveat to that. It's got to be the original German version. It has to be 99 Luftballons. It has to be the German. But yes, that is a great song.
Was that a German accent?
No, well, I mean, I wanted it to be. Then halfway I thought, nope.
It got British.
Yes. It was just general European. Bohemian Rhapsody in the discussion as well. We have a 785 texter. This particular texter, I love this. They have been very upset about Jake and Fulton's list of favorite Taylor Swift songs last week when her album came out. And our 785 texter says, I'm not one to speculate, but I'm guessing Mic'd Up would choose something Taylor Swift. That is very funny. That is a grudge I can respect.
That is. Man, like...
From the 785, Phenomena by the Muppets. That's
not a lot of words.
That is a very funny answer. Crazy by Patsy Cline. All right, got some Patsy Cline in there. All right.
Yeah, like different pop song, different rock, perfect pop song, perfect country song. Like they all like different. Like perfect is different for all of those genres.
Waterloo Sunset by the Kinks. That one coming in from the 615. The Kinks rule. So I'm all about that.
Wichita Lineman is a perfect song.
Yeah, Glenn Campbell.
Let's see what else. Man, I Feel Like a Woman is a perfect song. Shania Twain.
Shania Twain.
That is a perfect pop country song.
Yeah. My answer is and will always be Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits. I think
Great
that song.
Thank you for saying that.
I do not think there is a single thing you can possibly complain about with that song. It is flawless. The words, the guitar, everything. Perfect.
Tells a story.
Yep.
Great solo.
I think for me that is like the perfect song.
Man, that's a good. I could sit here all day and try and think of.
Shout out to Mark knopfler and that incredible salad. Hair, I mean, not like Caesar salad.
I knew what you meant. Oh man, perfect songs. Jeez. Like I could go through and man.
Proud Mary by Creedence Clearwater Revival. That's from the 785. House the Rising Sun by the Animals. There's a throwback for you.
That is a throwback. Just songs that, they're perfect. They're in, they're out. They tell their story.
Mm-hmm. No flaws.
Man, I'm trying to think what the perfect Beatles song is. Because they've probably...
None of them.
Wrong.
Aren't you the one who said, unlike the Beatles, Migos had hits?
Yes, I did say Migos were better than the Beatles. R.I.P. Takeoff. Very sad day. Yes, I stand by that. Migos had perfect songs. Call Casting is a perfect song. T-Shirt is a perfect song. Those are on the same album.
If you want one from the hip-hop world, the rap world, I think Money Trees by Kendrick Lamar is a perfect song.
I thought of that one, too. I thought of that. That is a perfect song.
Hell yeah, from the 620. Let's get some Rush in here. Limelight by Rush. Awesome.
Very good song.
Love it.
Very good undersells it.
I love Rush.
I do love the power trio from Canada. Although that's not my favorite Rush song. Working Man is my favorite Rush song.
That was your walk-up music, wasn't it, when you played baseball?
Yes, it was. Correct.
I think about that when I hear it now.
Yeah, that was me.
I think Free Will might be my favorite Rush song.
Enter Sandman by Metallica is a perfect song.
That's a great song. Yeah, because you can even go different genres, but you can also go different moods.
Right.
Like if you want a Metallica one, my favorite, I'm
All
Miserable
Along the
song.
Watchtower is a perfect song. Jimi Hendrix's version is a perfect song.
Fade to Black, Metallica. That's my favorite I'm Miserable song. Perfect breakup song, Black by Pearl Jam.
Okay.
I once got dumped and I listened to that song exclusively for 2 weeks. Which probably says more about me than the song, but still. We got Glenn Miller Orchestra on the text line. Take the A Train. I don't know if I know that. I'm sure I know that song, but I don't know if I could pull it off the top of my head. Paul McCartney and Wings, Band on the Run. It's like 3 songs in one. That's from the 316. Keep these coming in on the Big O Tires text line. If you think of a perfect song, what is that song?
Still Tippin'. Mike Jones, Paul Wall, Slim Thug. Perfect song. The Beethoven sample in the background, It is flawless. The Beethoven or Mozart? It's one of the two.
I couldn't tell you. My grasp on classical. I'm sure there are classical options you could throw in here too, but that is way outside my wheelhouse.
In the Hall of the Mountain King. Banger.
Under the Glass Moon by Dream Theater. That one's for Jake.
Yeah, Jake, big Dream Theater guy.
He's a big Dream Theater guy. Which, until I came in on a Saturday one time, I was getting some game prep done, I think, or I came in for something, and I hear Dream Theater playing, and I was like, who is playing that? And I walk over, Jake's in also doing work. I'm like, you listen to 80s prog? Well, apparently so.
Carry On My Wayward Son by Kansas, also from the text line.
Mm-hmm.
We have one text that just says Brandy. I can only assume that he left off and Monica, The Boy Is Mine.
That is a classic.
That is a perfect song.
That is a classic. Do you have a random question for us today?
I do not, but I have no notes. That was a perfect random question.
There you go. Perfect. Absolutely on brand. Keep them coming all day long on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. What is the perfect song? Any genre, any mood, whatever it might be. When you think of a perfect song, what might that be? We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back after this timeout, however, the college football playoff rankings, the first ones of the year, they come out tonight. Who will be in the top 6? Who do we think should be in the top 6? It could be 2 different answers. We'll get to that next on 580 Sports Talk. Still rolling in on the Big O Tires text line for our Random Question Tuesday question of the day. What is the perfect song? So we have a correction. It was not a song by Brandy. It was the song Brandy by Looking Glass.
I have heard that song more in the state of Kansas than I have heard it outside of the state of Kansas. I don't know what that means. I don't think it means anything, but that's a good song. Yeah, I can rock with that. I can rock with that.
Is Looking Glass from Kansas? No, they're not. They're from New Jersey. So I don't know what that connection might actually be for.
It's just very popular here.
We've got Time Stand Still by Rush. Again,
Okay.
More Rush.
More Rush.
Shout out Canada. One Friend by Dan Seals.
Fountains of Wayne, Stacy's Mom is a great, that is as a pop rock song, that is as good as it gets.
That's a great like party song. Like that comes out at a party, everybody starts vibing. I've got a brand new pair of roller skates. I've got a brand new key by Melanie.
Okay, yeah, like you're lying. You don't like that song.
I don't know that song.
I'm just telling that texter you're lying. You don't like that. You don't like that song. Nobody likes that song. You're lying. That's okay. You're among friends here.
Speaking of Stacy's Mom, can you name another Fountains of Wayne song?
Oh no, I can't.
They did "Hey Julie," which is one of my favorite love songs ever. It is a very sweet song. They did. What is it? Someone to Love? Is that what it's called? Where they rhyme the words Schenectady and 93. It's very funny. That's a classic Fountains of Wayne. Yeah, Someone to Love by Fountains of Wayne. That's like peak early 2000s. It's like the OAR generation.
Other ones I came up with, Jolene by Dolly Parton is a perfect song.
That's a perfect one.
Into Club by 50 Cent is a perfect song. Everlong by Foo Fighters. We had the Foo Fighters bring us out of this break. Everlong is a perfect song. That's so I just gave you those three back to back to back. I contain multitudes.
Again, keep sending them in on the Big O Tires text line. What is the perfect song? Also, if you are watching us on YouTube, which you can now do, look up Sports on 580 WIBW on YouTube. You can send them in the comments section as well. It all pops up right here in front of us. It is nice and easy to read for us. Multiple ways now you can interact here on 580 Sports Talk. Is it Cabo Wabo by Van Halen? Is that how you pronounce that? I'm not a Van Halen guy. I'm going to assume that's how you pronounce it.
Cabo Wabo.
That's from the 785. Appreciate all the interaction. Keep sending those in all day.
Van Halen does have a perfect song. It's Panama.
Panama, yeah.
Panama's perfect.
That's definitely their best song.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. The college football playoff rankings, first ones of the year. They come out tonight. They will make us upset. I am certain of it. It will make us upset somehow. Here's the first question. This is a two-part segment. Number one, in your estimation, who will be in the top six? Not who is the most deserving in your mind. Who do you think will be in the top six? So the four playoff teams and then the first two out.
First four in are going to be four SEC teams and make everybody really mad. No, it's going to be Tennessee and Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And then it might be Michigan, Ohio State. It might be two SEC, two Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be those four in some order with Alabama 5 and where TCU ends up will be very fascinating.
I agree.
But as unbeaten TCU, like what does the committee think of the Big 12? Because if the committee likes the Big 12, they'll be in the top 6.
Mm-hmm.
If the committee doesn't like the Big 12 so much, they won't be in the top 6. But I think
probably replaced by Clemson, I'd guess.
Yeah. Well, I forgot about Clemson. Maybe Alabama's out.
They could be. So my answer for who will be in: Georgia number 1, Tennessee number 2, Ohio State number 3. I think Alabama is going to get number 4.
No.
That's what they do, man.
No.
It's a TV show. This is not the real, because where I think Alabama falls, I think they're 5th. I think they will come in 5th. That is my where should they come in. I think they'll be 5th or 6th.
Clemson hasn't been very convincing. So
agreed.
Yeah, the Clemson TCU thing, I think Alabama's in the top 6. I don't think they're going to be in top 4. But
I think that's going to be the triggering move tonight, is that, it's Alabama, and everyone's going to talk about it, and Gary Barta is going to say some dumb stuff to Reese Davis, and it's going to be the usual fare. I think Clemson and Michigan will be your first two out. If I was picking, though, if I was setting it up, if the committee was smart and gave me all the power, which you should, you nerds, Tennessee would be number 1. I'm putting Tennessee first. I think they've been the most impressive team this year. Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, and I would put Michigan 4. I think Michigan has earned that spot. I think TCU and Alabama would be my first two out. I'm still taking Alabama over Clemson.
TCU and Alabama, yeah. the TCU, there might only be room for one of them in the top 6 because I do think Alabama's going to be in the top 6.
Mm-hmm.
And where you come down on that is, okay, is it about the brand? Is it about what they've done the last handful of years? Or is it about which team is playing better and which team is from a better league? Because you can't say with a straight face that the ACC has been better than the Big 12 this year.
No, not even close.
So it would be a really good sign for the Big 12 if TCU's in that top 6. I think a really good sign. I don't think I could argue for them to be higher than number 6. Then again, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson, because they are Clemson, ducks into the top 4 and one of those Big 10 teams is left out. But I don't know, like, if one of those Big 10 teams doesn't make the top 4, which one would it be? Would it be Ohio State? Would it be Michigan?
I think it's Michigan.
See, I think it might be Ohio State.
I think it, again, comes down to the brand thing. Not that Michigan's not a brand. It obviously is. But I think it comes down to, well, it's Ohio State. They've got the reputation. They would get that nod. By the way, one point about the ACC real quick. There are 5 ACC teams that are ranked in the AP poll. You've got Clemson at 5 in the AP poll. Nobody else until you get to 17 and North Carolina. And then 3 straight schools, 20 through 22. Wake Forest, North Carolina State, Syracuse. 2 of those schools dropped at least 6 spots in this week's poll.
Yeah. Clemson clinging with their fingernails to their spot in the top 25, and Wake Forest played maybe the worst quarter of football in the history of organized football by a top 10 team against Louisville on Saturday. Yeah, you can't make that argument. And I know I've watched a lot more Big 12 football than I've watched ACC football, but like the bad teams of the ACC aren't even in the same stratosphere as the lower half of the Big 12. It's like, it's not close.
No, not even remotely close. The Big 12 has been
much more depth.
You could argue the Big 12 has been the second best conference this year, because you look at the bottom of the Big 10. Bottom of the Big 10 stinks. It's no good. Big 12 is competitive 1 through 10. It really is. Even the bad teams, the Iowa State has not been very good this year, but they're competitive.
Yeah,
West Virginia has been competitive.
Lost to Texas by 4, lost to K-State by 1. Like they're in games.
Yeah, I mean, KU at this point probably fairly has fallen into the bottom half of the league pretty understandably. You want to play KU? You think any of the other teams in the league want to play KU right now? No. You think Oklahoma State, coming off that ass kicking this past week, all of a sudden wants to face Jalen Daniels running the triple? No. Big 12, I think, has been the second best league in America this year.
We'll see how much respect they get. We'll see how much regard they get, how high Kansas State is.
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating.
Like, I know they're 13th in the AP.
They should be top 15. I don't really think there's an argument against it.
Easily.
Yeah. We have a texter from the 785 who says, I think TCU can run the table based on the remainder of their schedule. They have gotten through a lot of the tough stuff.
They have. Yeah, the back end of their schedule, they almost should. Honestly, they should end up 12-0.
Yeah. One last entry before we get to the top of the hour about what is the perfect song from the 785. Says, we use it as bump music sometimes. The World Has Turned and Left Me Here by Weezer. Was not expecting a Weezer entry.
But that is a fabulous song.
It is a tremendous song.
It's probably my favorite song that they do, actually, come to think of it. Also, I need to issue a correction to a previous comment. Earlier I said that Van Halen had one perfect song. I lied. Dreams is a perfect song. They have 2.
We have another comment from our guy Vance on the Sports on 580 YouTube channel who says, really, Dan, the best song is Hot for Teacher. I do like Hot for Teacher. It's a good song.
It is a good song.
Want to hear a very weird sentence? I saw Brad Paisley play Hot for Teacher in concert one time. He did an entire 10-minute bit where he just played rock music. Nobody else at the entire concert in Tinley Park, Illinois thought it was cool except me. I was like, wow, this is great. Why aren't you guys making any noise? This is the best part of the whole show. It was a tremendous part of the show. We've got to take a time out here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll get to some NFL Contender Pretender coming up next here on the program. Hey now, 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday here on 580 WIBW and FM News 104.9. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. Appreciate everyone who's joined in the show so far on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. And everyone who's watching on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW on YouTube. We're live streaming every show now. So you can watch Dan and I as you listen to the two of us on the airwaves. You can interact in the YouTube comments as well. Plus, if you're following us on Twitter, you can watch the show via Twitter stream as well at Sports on 580 on Twitter, Sports on 580 WIBW on YouTube. Appreciate everyone who has subscribed, checked it out. You are welcome to do so as well, and we would invite you happily to go and do so. If you missed the first hour of the show, by the way, you can go check out all of our reaction to a crazy day on the NFL trade deadline.
Truly
front.
a historic day,
in
fact.
Never have there been more trades at the trade deadline. 10 of them today. 10 deals. That's a big-time day for the NFL. The trade deadline has never been exciting before.
We never even got to the Calvin Ridley trade.
No, which is wild because he is currently suspended for betting against the Jaguars. And now he is going to play for the Jaguars
eventually.
Yeah, which is
with
crazy.
The most heavily conditional pick in the history of the league going back to the Falcons in the deal.
Are they going to get a sixth rounder? Are they going to get a second rounder? Hard to say. There's about 900 conditions on it. So for what it's worth, I think that's a great trade for Jacksonville. You don't care about wins and losses this season. All you cared about this season was Doug Peterson starting to rebuild the culture and Trevor Lawrence essentially doing anything positive.
Yeah,
because he's effectively in his rookie year.
Yes, this is year one. He had year zero last year. This is now year one for Trevor Lawrence, and you get him a receiver that when he does take the field for the Jaguars will be the best one that they have.
He's a legit number one.
Yeah,
and with how well Christian Kirk has played, overpaid or not, Kirk and Ridley is a pretty nice 1-2 combo.
Yeah, I'd take that.
The next year, if it doesn't work for Lawrence, it will not be because he doesn't have help. Because ETN is a dude. He's got a adult in the room head coach, and he's going to have receivers.
Even Evan Ingram's having a decent year at tight end.
Absolutely. I love that deal for Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And if you're Atlanta, he was never going to play for you again anyway. So what does it matter?
Wonder what the odds were on Ridley's next team being the Jags.
I saw many people tweet, wow, that's quite a gamble by Jacksonville. Get the jokes in. Get them all in. They're going to keep coming. But if you missed the first hour of the show, head over to our website, 580WIBW.com. That is the new URL. Head over there, and you'll be able to check out the podcast version of the show. Go to the podcast tab in the middle of the page. It'll pop up with a couple different shows. Click on 580 Sports Talk, and there you will find us. By the way, if you are waiting with bated breath for the video debut of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton, as you noticed, if you were listening today, was out. He'll be back tomorrow on the show, and you will be able to see their video debut. We're all very excited for that.
Jake didn't want to do solo dolo video.
Yeah, he's running from the grind. I will be doing it because you are heading to Manhattan today to cover K-State, following What Is Wrong With You. Jake will go there as well. He'll be calling the game for Washburn Radio over on Country 106.9. So I will bite the bullet for everyone, and I will be the first one to have just my face on the broadcast. I will take the Rotten Tomatoes being thrown from the peanut gallery for everyone. I can be the first one to do that. Coming up here in this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, we'll get to some NFL Contender Pretender here in just a second. We do have our first What Is Wrong With You for the month of November after the Idiot Flambe picked up the win for October. Great name that came in from the text line yesterday. And, of course, we will talk to Michael Swain of Fog.net and 24/7 Sports for this week's Jayhawk Weekly, sponsored by 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. By the way, some very cool news for our guy, Michael Swain. He is also taking over as the co-host, along with our pal Tim Fitzgerald, of The Drive on Channel 13 here in Topeka. Scott Chasen, friend of the program, he has accepted a new job as the assistant sports editor at the Kansas City Star. So, big day for friends of the program here on 580 Sports Talk. So shout out to Scott, shout out to Michael. We'll talk to him a little bit later.
We love seeing our pals thrive.
Absolutely. Good for them. Look at the KU grads stepping up. By the way, we do have another entry here from the Big O Tires text line for the perfect song. We have an entry from the the biggest selling song of all time, White Christmas.
It's a perfect Christmas song.
Yeah, it is a great Christmas song.
It is.
Do you know what movie it was featured in heavily?
White Christmas?
I believe Holiday Inn was the first movie that it actually debuted in.
Then
right. White Christmas.
My wife loves that movie. I've never seen it.
Holiday Inn?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom watches that movie every year.
Yeah, that's been a tradition in my wife's family for years, and I've never seen it.
This should have been a question for Random Question Tuesday. I promise we'll get to NFL Contender Pretender in a minute. Are you or your wife early Christmas decorators?
No.
Okay.
We were late Halloween decorators, so
kids are coming to the door and we're hanging up the spider webs.
You're right.
Yeah, I left to my own devices, which I had been for many years, I would decorate for Christmas on like December 20th. Like I put up my little tabletop tree and my one strand of lights around my front door. Like it would go up late. It'd go up. Abby is much more in the Christmas spirit from a very early part of the year. And we went back and forth on it a little bit last year. I told her this year we can put stuff up earlier. Let's get in the Christmas spirit. That's fine. She's not a huge Thanksgiving celebrator, just not, a huge deal for her family growing up. So early Christmas is going to be more of a thing. So I said, okay, that's fine. If it makes you happy and if it makes, a little more cheer, I will accept that.
Sure.
I know a lot of people who
happy
are
wife, happy life
putting up trees though. Like November 1st, put the tree up.
Yeah, I can't go for that.
Get Mariah Carey on the iPod.
Yeah, it's too early for me.
Much too early for that. Much too early. I've seen that a bunch of bars locally and elsewhere have rules in place for the next 2 months. Once a night, you get the Mariah Carey Christmas song once a night. Once it plays,
or I'm yanking the touch tunes out of the wall.
Not until tomorrow, which I can certainly respect. All right, let's get to NFL Contender Pretender here. These are teams that could be contending for a playoff spot, could be contending for a Super Bowl. Let's start in the AFC, and let's start with the team the Chiefs are going to play next. The Tennessee Titans are on a winning streak. They may have just changed quarterbacks to Malik Willis, which I think gives them a higher ceiling because he is dynamic, more dynamic than Ryan Tannehill is at this part of his career. The floor is also lower. I mean, we knew going into the draft when we still thought Malik Willis would be a first-round pick, this was going to be a project pick, that the potential off the charts. The right now probably was going to need some time to develop, probably sit for a while. Don't know exactly what Tannehill's status is going to be. He was sick this past week. That's why he didn't start officially. He's also been kind of bad. So we don't exactly know who's going to start for the Titans against the Chiefs. Contender, pretender, the Tennessee Titans.
Pretender, and I don't have to think too hard about it. They kind of are what they have been, which is a team that is very dependent on Derrick Henry. And if Derrick Henry gets loose and they run the ball really, really well, they can control the game and they can beat you that way. My variable teams tend to not beat themselves, and they have won a lot of really close games over the course of this 5-game winning streak. They've also rushed for over 100 yards in this 5-game winning streak in all 5 of those games. I think they had 300 plus rushing yards against the Titans on Sunday. In the 2 games that they lost to open the season, they did not rush for 100 yards. And I know that that's not a down the line correlation causation kind of thing, but they are Derrick Henry's team. They will go as far as Derrick Henry carries them. There's a little bit more juice than I anticipated he might have this year. I wondered if this might be the year the wheels started to fall off of that wagon for the Titans. So far, that's not happening. But outside of Derrick Henry, who scares you on the Titans? Like, Jeffrey Simmons is a really good interior defensive lineman.
Yes, he is.
Bud Dupree has 4 sacks, a good pass rusher.
Very old school name. Nobody's named Bud anymore.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of Buds anymore, do we? The secondary's fine. Like, they've got some good players in the secondary. This is not a team. Like, there's a reason that the Chiefs opened as double-digit favorites, and that line has gone up. Like, this is not, to me, a team that we should be taking all that seriously as a real AFC contender. No.
Now, they don't have Treylon Burks because he's on IR right now, their first-round pick. Here is who, on their ESPN depth chart, the Titans have listed as their 3 starting wide receivers. Robert Woods, who, by the way, has struggled a little bit this year coming off of injury, which is to be expected. Nick Westbrook-Akina and Cody Hollister. No relation, as far as I'm aware, to the shirt company. That's who they've got at wide receiver, along with, you'll never believe it, Chris Conley. Like, to me, all that it takes to beat the Titans is just tackle Derrick Henry with reasonable efficiency, and they're not going to win any games, no matter who's starting, Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill at quarterback.
Yeah, they beat the Raiders by 2. They beat the Colts by a touchdown. They beat the Commanders by 4. They beat the Colts again, and they beat the Texans. Not exactly murderer's row. Yeah, I'm not buying the Titans.
They're good enough to win that division.
Sure they are.
That division stinks. And
literally, somebody has to.
Yeah, you must have a winner. Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're a pretender when it comes to anything beyond their division title. Sticking with the AFC, they made a huge trade today to get Bradley Chubb to add to their pass rush. They got a very nice number 2 running back in Jeff Wilson, who paired with Raheem Mostert in the Mike McDaniel offense, should be a really strong pairing. Are the Miami Dolphins contenders or pretenders?
They're a lot closer to the former than the latter with the Chubb acquisition because it gives them an opportunity to create pressure with 4 or 5 rushers, which they haven't really had to this point, and that's been a detriment to their defense. It's why they struggled on Sunday against the Lions offense. And offensively, they do have weapons that scare you. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa appears to be back, appears to be, able to move on and have no lasting effects from those terrifying concussions.
Undefeated in games he's played 60 minutes in this year.
Yeah, you do worry about, if he takes one more hit like that, what their season looks like after that, because Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson were less than convincing. We'll see what their ground game looks like. Jeff Wilson's probably an upgrade from Chase Edmonds at running back number 2, should pair with Raheem Mostert nicely. And obviously, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are awesome. So the question is going to be, are they I don't have any question about their offense. They're good enough offensively to win some games. Defensively, can they get stops? And the Bradley Chubb trade, I think, moves them closer in that direction. They are not going to catch the Bills in the East. Are they going to be a whole lot of fun for the Titans to play in round 1 of the playoffs?
Nope.
Are they going to be a lot of fun for the number 1 seed to have to play potentially after that? No.
I will put them fully in contender. Not to say that they are on the same level as the Chiefs or the Bills, because they're not. But they've got an offense who is just as good as any in the NFL right now. Bradley Chubb helps a lot on that defensive line, because now you've got 2 strong, young pass rushers. Because you've got Chubb. Jalen Phillips looks like he might be pretty special. I was talking to Jake while we were cross-talking earlier today on Mic'd Up, and I said I compare Jalen Phillips a lot to a very similar player in Green Bay. Of course, I made that comparison. In Rashawn Gary. Super athlete, kind of up and down, iffy college career. Phillips had a lot going on in his college career, transfer, a whole bunch of stuff. But you draft him as an athlete with the hope you can mold them into a football player. Rashawn Gary has been awesome for Green Bay. Probably Green Bay's best overall player this season, or at least one of the 2. Jalen Phillips has been the best defensive player for Miami this year off that other edge. You bring in someone else who can get after the quarterback, maybe make a stop or 2 off the edge. I like that for Miami. I'll put them in contender. I would put them number 3 in the AFC right now. A solid drop-off from the Bills and Chiefs. I mean, it's size.
Yeah, we've been trying to figure out who number 3 is, and it's either them or Baltimore. And if you want to put them above Baltimore right now, I'd listen to that.
I would have thought about the Bengals until last night. Damn.
Yeah, that
was awful.
Yeah, Jamar Chase apparently was the entire offense.
Oh, man, that was gross last night against the Browns. One last one from the AFC to get to. This is for the playoffs only. They're not winning a Super Bowl. The Los Angeles Chargers.
I mean, they can make the playoffs. They've got as good a quarterback as anybody in the conference. But what I keep coming back to is that Brandon Staley doesn't appear, for all the publicity about him being Mr. Fourth Down and Mr. Analytics and all that, and him getting all the credit that he was getting early in his head coaching career for being willing to be aggressive in spots where historically football coaches are not willing to be aggressive on 4th down. Brandon Staley doesn't appear to be a very good head coach. And Joe Lombardi, we know for a fact, is not a good offensive coordinator.
The worst.
And when you add that to the injuries that they've suffered on the defensive side, and the fact that Herbert still hasn't quite looked right since he suffered that rib injury at the end of the Chiefs game, I think they may struggle to make the playoffs. I really do. And if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to have to fire Brandon Staley, start all over again.
I'm with you on that. So the race for the wild card. Right now, you've got Bills, Titans, Chiefs, Ravens as your division leaders. You've got a lot of 5-3 teams in the AFC, by the way. Your current wild cards are the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Chargers. The Chargers are a half a game up on the Patriots and the Bengals. Those are the teams that are in the running. Colts out, Browns out, everybody else below that out. Maybe the Browns get their way back in. For these purposes, no.
I think the Jets are going to crater. They are so bad at quarterback. They lost Breece Hall. I think that team is going to crater.
So pull them out. Chargers would still be in the mix. I think the Dolphins get a wild card. I do think the Bengals will get one. I do think they will make the playoffs this year. So essentially then it would come down to the Patriots or the Chargers. Who do you believe in more? One team is playing either Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi at quarterback. The other one has its quarterback led by Joe Lombardi.
I guess the Chargers. God, that's gross. This is why we didn't need 7 teams in the playoffs.
I would agree with that. One day in 40 years, a 7 seed is going to win the Super Bowl, and there will be old folks on whatever becomes like zombie Twitter that say, I told you the 7 seed was a good idea. And, well, they're wrong, but congrats on your victory lap 4 decades from now. Couple quick ones I want to get to from the NFC. The Minnesota Vikings. This is for the Super Bowl. The Minnesota Vikings, contender, pretender.
It's hard to consider them a real championship contender because I think Kirk Cousins still limits them, and we know what Kirk Cousins' record in primetime games is, and it's not real good. Very bad. That being said, they are as talented as anybody in the NFC, but talent hasn't been the issue. Like, they've had all these guys. It's not like they got an infusion of talent this past offseason. Like, they've had Justin Jefferson, they've had Adam Thielen, they've had, some of the playmakers that they've got on the defensive side of the ball, Harrison Smith, all those guys. They add TJ Hawkinson today, which is a really good addition for them. They look like they're going to win that division without too much trouble, which gets them at least one home game. I mean, really, how you feel about them is how you feel about Kurt. And I don't feel that type of way about Kirk. I just don't.
Here is how I would stack it up, because Hawkinson is a great addition for that offense. That's a fun piece to get for that Kevin O'Connell offense. Put them up against the other contenders in the NFC right now. Primetime game, they've got to go on the road to Philadelphia. You trusting Kirk Cousins in that game?
No.
Not one bit.
Are the lights of the stadium going to be on?
Yeah, so exactly. There's no reason that you could possibly trust him in that situation. The other teams in the NFC, there's a lot of, I don't know. But Philadelphia right now is the crop of that conference.
Cream of the crop, yep.
Cream of the crop. If you do not think you can go on the road and beat Philadelphia, then no, you're out of it. That is by far the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
I don't care how many 6-1, 6-2 teams there are. It is Philly and everybody else. So I lean toward pretender. I obviously have some bias there as well. It's Kirk Cousins, man. That's all it is. Last one. This one's just for you. The Seattle Seahawks. Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, no. I can't go that far.
Okay.
But can they win a playoff game? I think they can, because I think they can get one at home, because I think they can win that division. They are getting better week by week. That's one thing you want to see from teams. Like, I know we've only got an 8-game sample size with them, but I mentioned this on yesterday's show. First 5 weeks of the season, they were 31st out of 32 teams in Football Outsiders DVOA defensive metric. 31st. The Pits, they're 13th now. They've moved up 18 places in the last 3 weeks. They've changed scheme. They've gotten guys more comfortable. They appear to have some standouts in the secondary that are rookies in Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant. Uchenna Nwosu, who's putting up huge numbers as a pass rusher this year, has been one of the most effective and productive pass rushers in the league. If they figured it out on defense and Geno Smith is this, then they can win that division and win a playoff game and make a little noise in January. And I kind of tend to believe, based on what people smarter than me are saying when they watch film of Geno Smith, this isn't an accident. Like, he's letting it rip. He's comfortable in that offense. He's got 2 elite wide receivers in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Why can't this be real? Why can't the Seahawks be good? At this point, you have to convince me that they're not, more so than you have to convince me that they are.
I think that's fair. I think they have a good chance to win that division. I think they have a chance they could win a playoff game. I will say pretender for a Super Bowl, though. You cannot take away what Geno Smith is doing right now and how well he is playing. It is that you're right.
He's a bona fide MVP candidate. Never mind comeback player of the year. That's already won.
He's been very, very good. We've never seen Geno Smith play in a meaningful season on the line kind of game. Do you trust him to win that game for you? He's got help around him, which obviously helps. He's got a system that works with Shane Waldron, their offensive coordinator. I don't think at this juncture I could say that they're a Super Bowl contender, but I would agree with you that they've got a chance to win a playoff game. Could they get to the NFC Championship game? Sure they could. They absolutely have a chance to get there. Nobody in the NFC is better than the Eagles right now. Philly is by far the best team in the NFC. Let's take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. After this timeout, we've got our first November What is Wrong with You here on 580 Sports Talk. Of the month of November here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you. Jake also just jumped into the studio. He doesn't have a microphone, so I can call him out for this. I had my phone out. I had Pokemon Go open because it was a commercial break. And then Jake jumped in and grabbed my phone. And he tells me he makes fun of me for playing it. Just, trying to catch them all during the break.
Hey, we all do different things during the break. I just look at Twitter mostly.
Jake and Dan about to head to Manhattan for Washburn versus K-State exhibition hoops tonight. Get the first look at the new look Wildcats coming up this evening from Bramlage Coliseum. You'll be able to hear that game over on our sister station with the Washburn Call, Country 106.9. Two new stories going head-to-head today in What is Wrong with You. Our first What is Wrong with You of the month. I've got a quick one here, Dan. We are going once again across the pond. We are going to England, and once again, we're going to Birmingham, or Birmingham, as we would say here in the U.S. Hundreds of people were evacuated from Birmingham New Street Station. That is a train station in Birmingham. I've been there, in fact. After a security alert that turned out to be caused by a cannabis grinder. All services in and out of the station were suspended after reports of a suspicious package at about 3 p.m. yesterday. Experts discovered the item, found on a platform, was actually a cannabis grinder in the shape of a grenade. Why? Why do you have that? Why is that in your possession? And why are you just leaving it out in public at a train station?
Yeah, bad ideas abound.
Commuters were allowed back in about an hour and 40 minutes later, but the disruption is expected to last until the end of the day yesterday. That was a pretty darn long suspension of service. British Transport Police said in a statement, quote, "The item has now been assessed by specialist officers and is no longer being treated as suspicious." How did they know? Oh, we opened it and smelled it. We took a hit. One passenger wrote, quote, "Birmingham New Street Station evacuation, been told to get as far away from the building as possible. Undercover police vehicles and ambulances at the scene." Another passenger said police officers at the main entrance had been shouting at people to move away immediately and to get back onto New Street now. Others said they were stuck on trains outside the station. Yeah, and it ended up being a cannabis grinder. Keep it in your pocket, dude. Why do you have one that's shaped like a grenade?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we all be old enough now to be like, okay, like weird novelty stuff like this is lame. Like just get a regular one like an adult.
Yeah,
Come
grow
on.
up. That's a good lesson there.
I am not a drug guy. I'm not a weed guy. I've never partaken in that.
One of our listeners just texted the Big O Tires text line from 785, said, "I used to have one of those." Hopefully
keyword used to.
Yeah, hopefully it never resulted in the closing of a major public transportation station.
Yes, Birmingham New Street Station is very large. There is a lot of service out of that train station.
If you manage not to shut down public transportation with yours, then you were smarter with yours.
Yeah, you did the right thing then. Yeah, man, come on. Why are you leaving that out? What are you doing? That's my what is wrong with you for today.
So for mine, we're going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where two men were arrested Sunday in connection to a burglary at an AT&T store on 71st and Mingo.
These men have the skinniest faces I've ever seen in my life.
Around 7:50 Sunday morning, officers said they arrived at the AT&T in response to the store's alarm, found the power had been cut, a window had been broken out, the store had been ransacked. Display phones, chargers, and other miscellaneous items were stolen, and over $1,000 in damage was done inside the store. Officers then found an iPhone that appeared to be used. And AT&T personnel said it didn't belong to any of them, so officers seized the phone as evidence. After the officers left, a man later identified as Dylan Slack arrived at the store and attempted to go inside. Store personnel said Slack said he'd left his phone inside and wanted to retrieve it. The workers told police they told Slack the phone wasn't there, and he left in a Jeep Cherokee with a missing right fender. An officer later found the Jeep parked in a parking lot. The officer said Slack approached him and said his name was Matt Damon. We have pictures. It's not a visual medium, but you look at Dylan Slack, he looks about as much like Matt Damon as I do, which is to say not. In fact, I probably look more like Matt Damon than this guy does.
I would agree with that.
Anyhow, Slack was arrested by the officer shortly after. Another officer then located and arrested Slack's father, David McCullough. Tulsa police say Slack admitted to the burglary and said his father was in the Jeep during the burglary but did not get out of his vehicle. They both been booked on charges of burglary and false impersonation.
Ha! Get what you deserve.
So don't tell the police you're Matt Damon.
That is very funny.
They left a phone. They broke in, stole a bunch of phones, and might have gotten away with it too if it weren't for the fact that one of them left their phone at the scene and then tried to go get it back.
Why are you bringing your phone or anything else identifying into a robbery?
Right.
Wasn't there just a story the other day with this? Just last week, right? Someone left their prison ID card.
Yes, somebody robbed somebody in an ATM and left their prison ID behind, their inmate ID. Yeah, left their bag with all their identifying information.
Utter stupidity oozes from every pore of this guy. Yeah, this wins today. Man, leave your phone in your Jeep Wrangler.
Why did he need his phone? Was he doing some Pokemon Go?
He might have.
Did he have some Pokemon Go in the store?
Oh, dude, hold on. There's a Cyndaquil in here. You got to get this.
Like no reason to bring your phone and then to leave. Like I almost never leave a room without my phone. Never mind like leave a crime scene.
No, every time I leave a room or if I'm standing up, it's like every 5 minutes. Right pocket phone, left pocket keys, back pocket wallet. I got to check that all of it is in there. I'm not leaving anywhere, especially somewhere where I just committed a crime. That wins today. Oh, my God.
Absolute morons. Also, I think they've got them identified wrong. on the website.
I believe they do.
Yeah.
However, the real Dylan Slack also looks nothing like Matt Damon.
No, he sure doesn't.
Not even remotely so.
Sure doesn't.
That is our winner today in What Is Wrong With You. It'll advance on to tomorrow's show. With that, we are going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. And when we come back, we've got this week's Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain of Fog.net. That's coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk.
We're talking to Michael Swain, KU beat writer for 24/7 Sports and Fog.net. You can find all of Michael's great coverage of KU over at Fog.net. And, of course, you can follow him on Twitter at mswain247. For that Oklahoma State defense, what do they do in particular under their first-year defensive coordinator, Derek Mason, who first year at Oklahoma State, but he's been in the business for a long time? What do they do in particular that you think might give the KU offense some troubles? Some other injury news here for KU. You have to take a look at Jacoby for Jacoby, or I'm sorry, he goes by just Kobe now. Do you think he is going to be out there, or is that another one that might take a little time? All right, well, let's get to the prediction for this week then. KU is not an underdog by all that much. Feels like one of those, what does Vegas know that we don't kind of things. But if it is indeed going to be Gunnar Gundy who gets the start for Oklahoma State, that changes a great deal for that Pokes offense. So against the spread and straight up, who do you have this weekend in Lawrence at 2:30? Is it going to be KU that picks up the win, or do you think Oklahoma State comes in and bounces back? Couple more questions for Michael Swain from Fog.net joining us here on 580 Sports Talk for 23rd Street Brewery Jayhawk Weekly. Go check out Michael on Twitter at mswain247. Do you want to hit on a couple basketball things here, Michael, before we let you go? Because KU Hoops will open the season, quote unquote, coming up on Thursday in exhibition play against the Pitt State Gorillas. Then the actual season opener, the regular season opener, comes up on Monday next week, taking on Nebraska Omaha, or again, I guess they just go by Omaha these days. Are you expecting to see anything in particular from the exhibition opener on Thursday, or is it going to be pretty typical, run some vanilla stuff, healthy guys will play, get the young guys in by the end of the game? What are you expecting to see Thursday night? Man, you just brought that up, and I am trying now to think of who that was. It was a walk-on, right? And it was, he had been running the offense better than some of the other guards, so he got the exhibition start. I think it was a walk-on, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm gonna be. I'll dig in there with you because I'm very curious. I have this vivid memory though of the post game press conference in the Allen Fieldhouse media room and being told, well, he's been better on the ball screen defense or whatever it is. And I'm, man, you are so full of it, Bill Self. But hey, that's why he's the greatest, right? Because or one of the greatest ever, because he pulls the right strings at the right times. So we're gonna have to find that information. I did want to follow up though. You mentioned the center, and that's where I have the most concern too, and I think understandably. And I'm excited for this KU team this year. I think this is going to be a very good KU team this year. Why wouldn't we expect that with some of the pieces back? But I do think it's probably going to take a little time for them to fully gel. And I think having a tough non-conference schedule will be an especially big test for this year. How much should we make of this center problem? Is it just typical Bill Self being hard on his guys earlier in the season? Or to you, is this something that is going to be a legitimate concern, if not early, then maybe all year? One last preseason basketball preview question. We've got about 30 seconds here before we let you go, Michael. Who will be the top 3 scorers for KU this season? I like that dick pic. Okay, I can't believe I just said that. That is intentional. Unintentional. But I like choosing Grady Dick in that situation because I do think he's going to have to play a big role with such a young team that's going to need some shooting presence. I'm going to wash my mouth out with soap after that one. Michael Swain joins us every Tuesday for 23rd Street Brewery Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Follow him on Twitter at mswain247. Check him out at fog.net as well. Michael, as always, we appreciate the time. Congrats on the new TV gig, and we will talk to you after the football and basketball games coming up next Tuesday. That is Michael Swain from fog.net. Awesome insight into all things at KU as always. I'm not sure if Jake and Dan are listening on their way to Manhattan. I think that one might go in our best of 580 Sports Talk folder. We've got to take a break. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up after this.